would be, what operations do I see happening to the variable I'm solving for? What operations are happening to the variable I'm solving for? What is being added? What is being subtracted? What is being multiplied? Or what is being divided? That's what we're going to think through. And we want to do this, when we think about this, we want to do it in order of operations order. So we want to talk about the multiplication and the division before we talk about like addition and subtraction. Okay. And then the second question is the same thing we kind of think about when we solve any equation. How do I undo those in opposite order? So if you recall, when we are putting together an equation, it's in PEMDAS order. So this is the do. And if we want to undo and solve, we go backwards. So we're going to think about how is this equation put together, and then how do I undo what's happened. I'm going to highlight it, but you could box it or circle it or something like that. We are solving for x. So what we want to think about is what has happened to x. Thinking about parentheses first, exponents next, multiplication, division, and then addition, subtraction. Okay, so let's think about x. Do you see any parentheses near x? No. Okay, do you see any exponents? No. Do you see some multiplication or division? Yeah. Okay, someone raise your hand and tell me, what multiplication do you see? What do you see, Lillian?
I think that's 1a times 1x.
Yep. So x is multiplied by a. That's the first thing that happened. Remember that little dot? That means multiplication. So first thing, it multiplied by a. Now we'll check, do we see some addition or subtraction? Yes, Isaiah, what do you see? Plus b. So first, x was multiplied by a, and then it was added to b. So to undo it, we go backwards. So we have to undo the addition first. To undo, I subtract b. Ugh. And then, what's the opposite of multiplying? Divide by a. Okay, so let's do that. Draw your balancing line. First thing we undo is the addition. So we're going to subtract b.
How can you do addition first?
Because just like before, we're undoing in backwards order. So we undo the addition or subtraction first, and then the multiplication or division. Same order we've been doing. Okay, so we're subtracting b first, which will cancel that out. Are c and b like terms? No. So we are left with ax is equal to just c minus b. Just like yesterday, you got to keep them separate if they're not like terms. And then we divide by a, which will cancel out. Now, we're not dealing with numbers, and so you're not going to be able to simplify here, most likely. So it is okay with me if you deal with something that has a bunch of letters like this, you can leave it like that. So this is just, the final answer is c minus b divided by a. That is what x is equal to. I'm going to highlight both of them. Eventually we want to just see one x here, but for now there's two. So mark in some way, you are solving for the x. when you see two x's like this, or two of the same variable, what has happened is it was distributed. So the x has been distributed to the d and the negative w. So I'm going to kind of help you out with this one. The first thing that happened was x was, come on, there we go, multiplied, actually. It was multiplied by d minus w. That's the first thing that happened. And then it was distributed. So it was next to the parentheses, and then it was distributed to the parentheses. That's a tricky one to notice, but if you see that variable more than once, that's what's happened. So to undo it, we go backwards. Distribution is multiplication. Well, hold on. Do it in the order that it says. So if it says multiply by d minus w and then it was distributed, we have to start. To undo, I undistribute. Another word for that is factor. We'll talk more about that second semester. But for now, you can think of it as undistributing, taking it back out. And then it said it was multiplied by d minus w. So what is the opposite of that? Someone raise your hand. What is the opposite of multiplying by that? Yes, Ernie? Yeah, so we're going to divide by d minus w. 2 is it says undistribute. So I'm going to take the x out and get this back into parentheses. So what should go into the parentheses? Could someone tell me? What goes in the parentheses? If you're taking the x out, what goes in it, Joe? Yep. D minus w. So now you only have one x. That's good news. That's what we're solving for. I want x by itself, and so that's multiplication. And we said the next thing we do is divide by d minus w. You can put it in parentheses. You divide by all of that on both sides. It looks kind of weird. It's correct. So x is equal to, you can leave it like this because you can't break up that bottom part, z divided by d minus w. That is your answer. Mark it. My goal over the next 2 days is to get you to love it. Or at least tolerate it. Oh, this one. Okay. Look at the equation. How many x's do you see? 2. So what has happened? What did I tell you? If you see more than one of that variable, what happened? It's been distributed. So that's the first thing that happened, is it was distributed. Because I see 2 of them. Do you see how one of these x's is on the other side? So one of them was subtracted to the other side. So first it was distributed, and then it was subtracted to the other side. Add them, so do the opposite order. So it was subtracted to the other side, add back to the same side. And what's the opposite of distributing? Undistribute, or factor. Fx is alone. Do you want to take that one away? No. We should probably move the other one. So we are going to add the cx back to the other side. That's the first thing we do. Plus cx. Plus cx. Okay? So m would be equal to, these are not like terms. Not completely yet. We'll undistribute in a second. So negative fx plus cx. You see two x's, so we said it was distributed, so now we have to undistribute, right? So it's going to look, we're going to put some stuff back in parentheses. The x comes out because we're trying to get one of them. Could someone raise your hand and tell me what goes in the parentheses? Jackson?
F plus C, or negative.
Negative f plus c. Now I didn't completely give you all the instructions for this one. We're trying to get x by itself. Anybody got an instinct of what we should do next to get it by itself? Lucas?
Divide.
Divide by what?
Oh,
We want the x to stay on the right-hand side, so what's got to move?
or the F plus C.
The f plus c, so I can divide that. Good. So we're going to divide this entire side by negative f plus c. Divide the entire side by negative f plus c. So your answer is m divided by negative f plus c is equal to x. Whoa.
Really confused.
Okay. The first thing that's happening, and there's a lot here, the L is first multiplied by W plus H. That's the first thing that happens, right? Because it's in both of those. It's with the W, it's with the H. And then it was distributed. That's how they ended up being side by side. Like Isaiah put it, it was distributed to two of them. And then WH was added. And then all of them were multiplied by multiplied by 2. And then 2 was distributed to all three terms. That is what happened going forward. That is how they put the equation together. So now we're going to undo. Can't write right now. There we go. And to undo, we go backwards. Okay, so we're going to start at the bottom of this list. The last thing that happened was the 2 was distributed. So how do I undo that? We undistribute. So first thing we're going to do is undistribute the 2. Okay, check. Got that one. So go up the list. Then it was multiplied by 2. So what's the opposite? Divide. So then we'll divide by 2. Okay, go up the list. WH was then added. How do we undo addition? So now we're going to subtract WH. Go up the list again. Let me specify. This is then L was distributed. So how do I undo L being distributed? Undistribute the L. Go up the list again. And then L was multiplied by W plus H. So how do I get rid of the multiplication of W plus H? Divide by W plus H. So we're going to write this as S is equal to 2 goes outside the parentheses. And then divide everything by 2. So LW, what comes next? LH. You're just taking out the 2, like ripping it out of all three terms. And then what comes next? Okay. Okay, 2 was multiplied. So we undo the multiplication by doing what, guys? dividing. So we're going to divide by 2 on both sides, which will cancel out that 2. So remaining we have S divided by 2 is equal to LW plus LH plus WH. Again, we are solving for L. Don't forget. So mark it if you're starting to forget, because there's so many variables that you're getting confused. You can do it. Remember, we're solving for L. Let's take away the easiest thing first. The next easiest thing to get away is the WH, because it doesn't even have an L, right? So we'll subtract that. So S divided by 2 minus WH is equal to LW plus LH. So this is going to become S divided by 2 minus WH is equal to L is outside the parentheses, and then you take it out of those two terms, so W plus H. The last thing that we have to do is divide by W plus H. And I wrote too big. I'll scroll up. Divide by W plus H, which will cancel that out. So your final answer for L is S divided by 2 minus WH divided by W plus H. That is equal to L. Oh my gosh. Write it down. Area is equal to 1/2 BH. How is the 1/2 related to the H? It's multiplied. How's the B related to the H? Multiplied. If it's all stuck together like that, it's just multiplication. How do we undo multiplication? Divide. So we're going to, I would say let's get rid of the 1/2 first. Remember, we multiplied by the reciprocal. So I multiply by 2 over 1. So that would give me just 2a is equal to bh. B is being multiplied. How do you undo multiplication? Divide. Divide by b. So 2a divided by b is equal to the height. That one maybe wasn't so bad.